Greetings, YouTube. Today's article is actually from this year. It's just this last month. Okay, it's out of Connecticut. Many American rapes go unreported and unpunished, in part because ideas about what constitutes a real rape still hinder investigations and prosecutions, and many police officers continue to read vulnerability as complicity. Side note, we know from studies that police officers, men and women, do not take rape reports seriously. They downplay them. They are simply not convinced by someone unless they act in a specific manner. If you don't act in a very specific manner, and if the facts around the rape do not fit a certain narrative, the cops just don't believe them. Flat out. We know this. All right? But there is another unacknowledged side to the investigation of sexual assault. The huge number of victims who are children or teenagers. New Haven, Connecticut detectives estimate that more than 80% of their cases involve minors, a number only slightly higher than national statistics. Such cases are rarely reported immediately, which means that there is rarely any physical evidence to investigate. To Catch a Rapist, how New Haven Special Victims Unit fights a hidden epidemic of sexual assault that is disturbingly difficult to investigate. Some may find description and topics in this article disturbing or triggering. Yeah, not a little shock there. As is, people may find my discussion here on this topic. Now, I've discussed this before. I'm mentioning it now so that people understand. I am a survivor of sexual assault by my scoutmaster and another woman. And so two different people, one man, one woman. And the only reason I can give that I was this is that I fit a certain profile. That because of my abusive upbringing, because my father was an abusive drunk, and my mother was an enabler, I fit a certain profile, and that sexual predators like that profile. Now there is some evidence that this actually does exist. For example, they've done studies have shown sexual predators, children, and sexual predators, having seen films of each one, pick the same kids over and over again as a potential victim because of their characteristics, their body language, their dynamic with their other children, and things like that. They zeroed in on those as victims. So, fortunately, because of my upbringing, I seem to have been a great victim. And now I'm a survivor. And there's a reason I use that language. Because while I may have been a victim of crime, I have moved beyond the state of being a victim. And I am now a survivor. Just as these children and teens, if they get the kind of help they need, become survivors. Now, one of the narratives I encounter all the time when I'm discussing rape of any variety is, of course, the false accusation. There are a whole lot of men out there that apparently, at least if you go by what they say here on the internet, spend every waking second of their lives terrified that someone is going to falsely accuse them of rape. I don't actually believe them. I don't downplay the seriousness of what happens. But we know it's a fairly small percentage of cases that are actually false allegations. Humans are humans. They lie. We know this. But it's not the percentages that a lot of these men seem to think it is, and it's not high enough that we could just all rape accusations are false. We shouldn't be doing that either. But that argument completely falls apart when you're discussing children, when you're discussing minors. Is the argument that a minor ended up having regrettable sex with an adult, so now they're making the accusation against an adult because they're just jealous or they're angry or they're having buyer's remorse? No, that's not what happens. If an adult preys upon someone below the age of consent, that's rape, period. If an adult manipulates a younger person, coercing them into sex because they don't have the maturity, the emotional and mental maturity to understand that they are being manipulated, that's rape. And it's not regretful sex. It's not the morning after and they're thinking, that wasn't very good. I should just tell people that that person raped me. Which actually doesn't happen in real life all that often, folks. But how do we as a society deal with the fact that victims of rape are minors. What do we do with that information? Well, hopefully, we get that child to a decent therapist. People who are specialists in interviewing children in these cases, so that they can get the information they need and get as much factual data as possible without scarring the child even further than they've already been scarred. Now, I never discussed my sexual assault, ever, until I was in my 30s. In fact, in my brain, it was like a piece of data that just kept slipping away. It's like you try to mentally grab it and it just would slip out of my grasp. I knew it was there, but I didn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with it because I had been betrayed on a fundamental level, particularly when it came to dealing with the assault that I survived at the hands of a woman. Because my society says, well, if you're a teenager, even when under the age of consent, which in my state is 16, and a woman comes on to you, you're a heterosexual man, well, you should be happy about that. The patriarchy put this mental model in my head that said it wasn't assault, except it was. I was 14. The patriarchy gave me baggage I didn't need. And said, okay, well, the guy that touched you and things like that, the one that assaulted you, that was bad. Okay, well, we'll admit that. But when a woman does it, well, that's a different matter. No, it isn't a different matter. If an adult's preying on a child sexually, it's a crime. And neither of the people that ever preyed upon me were ever arrested, were ever accused publicly. Though I did eventually encounter and confront the man that assaulted me and walked away better for it because he realized what he had done. And I walked out of there with my head held high. And much to my wife's pleasure, I didn't beat the crap out of him. I didn't touch him. She was kind of terrified that I was going to. And I actually encountered the daughter of the woman that I survived, because she made an offhand comment, because the narrative was so strong that she thought nothing of the fact that her mother had sex with more than one teenage boy. She thought that was normal somehow. She chuckled about it. And I came in close so she could hear me so no one else could, and I said, "Your mother's a pedophile." And then I ended the conversation. I'm a survivor. But I got here through a lot of hard work on my own and some help with a therapist. I wish I'd had a therapist when I was 14. I wish I'd have been able to charge these adults the way they should have been. But the baggage I was given prevented it. The manipulation they committed against me prevented me from doing it. It's our little secret. Don't tell anyone. Yeah, just saying those words right now makes me really, really angry. I can feel my jaw tighten up. I want to clench my teeth. Yeah. Not going to let them off the hook on that one, So what do we do? Well, hopefully, there are experts in the world that this report talks about that can help our kids. But we have to make sure that children know that they have bodily autonomy, that no one gets to touch them without their permission, particularly adults, particularly sexually, and that they have the resources available to them to report it, to be believed, to get help. was in a chaotic, abusive family structure, and these predators knew it. They knew that the possibility of people believing me was low, even if I had reported it. So I was the ideal target. Let's make sure that in the future, there are no more ideal targets.